Hey guys, tonight we begin a journey deep into the wintry heart of medieval Europe, where you trudge alongside a young emperor caught in a tempest of crowns, crosses, and betrayals. Picture the 1070s, the chill biting your cheeks, boots crunching on frost-hardened dirt, banners snapping in the sharp wind. This isn't a stroll through a royal garden. It's a decade-long campaign where power is fragile and loyalty even more so. You probably won't survive this, historically speaking. Henry IV's path is littered with failed alliances, bitter enemies, and moments that teeter on disaster. But here you are, stepping into his worn leather boots, feeling the weight of a crown that's as much burden as honor. Before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Oh, and drop your location and local time in the comments below. Bonus points if you're somewhere that's currently freezing your socks off like our man Henry. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You start this story as Henry IV, newly crowned King of the Romans, barely in your early 20s, inheriting an empire tangled in competing ambitions and ancient grudges. The Holy Roman Empire isn't a neat, well-oiled machine. It's a sprawling, patchwork kingdom where dukes and bishops wield power, rivaling your own, and the church's shadow looms large. The investiture controversy, the bitter dispute over who gets to appoint bishops, the emperor or the pope, is already simmering, threatening to boil over. You feel that simmer when Pope Gregory VII throws down the gauntlet, refusing to bend on this question of authority. It's not just a clash of titles, it's a fundamental challenge to your rule. Historians still argue whether Henry fully grasped the magnitude of this power struggle early on, or if youthful arrogance blinded him to the storm brewing ahead. As you march through your domains, you hear whispers of discontent. Nobles murmur behind closed doors, their eyes calculating. The Saxons in the north grumble, eager to reclaim freedoms they feel slipping away. Your reign, still fresh and fragile, looks vulnerable. You sense the delicate threads holding the empire together are fraying fast. The tension is thick enough to cut with a sword, or, more likely, a quill wielded by a scheming cleric. So, tonight, as you settle in and listen, imagine yourself there, cold, wary, yet determined at the very start of a decade that will test your spirit and reshape the course of medieval Europe. You wake the next morning to the sharp clang of the imperial court, preparing for a confrontation that will define your reign, the investiture controversy. Pope Gregory VII, a man with the kind of resolve that could carve mountains, has openly challenged your right to appoint bishops, an ancient privilege tied tightly to imperial power. It's more than a dispute over church titles. It's a full-on showdown for the soul of the empire. Walking through the stone corridors of your palace, the air thick with incense and tension, you feel the weight of every gaze. Courtiers whisper about the Pope's demands, about the growing power of the papacy, and how it threatens to pull the rug from under your feet. Gregory's reforms aren't just about religious purity. They're political weapons sharpened to cut down kings who dare to question Rome's authority. You probably didn't expect your biggest enemy to wear a mitre. But here you are. The Pope's letters arrive like thunderbolts, denouncing your appointments and threatening excommunication. Excommunication, being cut off from the church, was the medieval equivalent of being socially cancelled on a cosmic level. It could strip you of legitimacy in the eyes of your subjects and allies. Historians still argue whether Gregory truly believed in his cause or was driven by political ambition. Either way, His stance forces you into a corner. Do you bend to the Pope's will and risk losing face with your nobles? Or do you stand firm and face spiritual and political consequences? As you ponder this, the tension in your court rises. Bishops and abbots are torn between loyalty to you and obedience to Rome. Some quietly pledge allegiance to Gregory, undermining your authority from within. You can almost taste the bitterness in the air, like burnt bread left too long in the oven. The dispute isn't just happening on parchment or in council chambers. It's alive in every conversation, every glance. You can feel the empire's very foundation trembling under the weight of this power play. And, somewhere deep down, you realize this isn't just a battle for church offices. It's a battle for who truly rules Europe. So, as you prepare to face Pope Gregory's challenge, head on, remember, this is more than a political crisis. It's a spiritual and personal test. One that will force you to walk the razor's edge between divine authority and earthly power. The frost crunches beneath your boots as you trudge toward Canossa, a remote castle perched like a stubborn crow on the Apennine Mountains. Snowflakes swirl in the biting air, each one a tiny reminder that this journey is as much about humility as it is about survival. You're heading to beg Pope Gregory VII for forgiveness, a gesture that echoes through history as one of medieval Europe's most iconic power plays or humiliations. Depending on who you ask, imagine standing there, shivering in your royal robes, stripped of the usual trappings of power, waiting in the cold while the Pope considers your fate. The castle walls loom silent, indifferent to the political theater unfolding outside. This isn't just a walk in the park, it's a strategic act loaded with symbolism, and you're acutely aware that every noble, every bishop, is watching. You probably never thought you'd see the day when the emperor would become a supplicant. The sight of a crowned king humbled in the snow was so shocking that contemporaries and later chroniclers couldn't stop talking about it. Some say you stood barefoot in the snow for 3 days. But historians still argue whether that detail is literal or embellished, maybe a bit of medieval cold weather propaganda to shame you forever. Inside, Pope Gregory held the cards by making you wait. He forced the empire to acknowledge that spiritual authority trumped earthly might, at least for the moment. But you're not just a pawn, you're a player. This penance, humiliating as it feels, buys time and opens doors for you to regroup and strike back. Outside those frozen walls, your enemies in the German duchies are licking their chops. News of your submission spreads like wildfire, and whispers of weakness grow louder. The Saxons, already restless, see an emperor who's vulnerable. The fragile alliances you once held begin to wobble, and you sense the storm gathering on the horizon. You shiver again. But it's not just the cold. It's the realization that this moment will define your reign for years to come. You might have humbled yourself to the Pope, but the fight for the empire's soul has only just begun. So, as you stand on that snowy slope, waiting for absolution, remember, history may paint this as your low point. But every great story needs a turning point, and yours is just around the corner. The chill in the air is sharper than you expected. As you set out from your court, the sky, a slate-grey canvas smeared with the promise of more snow. You're heading to Canossa, a remote castle clinging to the Apennine Mountains like a stubborn eagle's nest. And it feels as if the very cold is testing your resolve. This journey isn't just a march, it's a pilgrimage. A desperate gambit to regain favor and salvage your reign amid a storm that threatens to swallow you whole. You trudge through winding mountain paths, your breath steaming in the icy air, the snow crunching under your boots with a rhythm that seems to echo the pounding of your heart. Around you, barren trees stand like silent sentinels, their skeletal branches scratching at the leaden sky. The deeper into this wilderness you go, the more the world seems to close in. There are no courtly comforts here, no warm halls to hide in, only the raw bite of winter and the looming fortress ahead. Canossa Castle itself is a grim stone sentinel atop a rugged peak, its battlements frosted with ice and its walls worn by centuries of storms. You've heard the stories of penances performed here, of nobles humbled, and kings humbled further still, and now you're about to become the latest actor in its long, unforgiving drama. To the casual observer, an emperor making a pilgrimage to a pope's fortress might seem like a show of weakness, but you know better. This is a high-stakes game of chess where every move, every gesture is loaded with meaning. You are about to place yourself in the Pope's hands, asking for forgiveness, not just as a man, but as the ruler of Christendom. The snow begins to fall heavier now, soft flakes swirling and settling on your shoulders, as if the heavens themselves are weighing down the moment. You are stripped of many of your regal comforts, no glittering armor or royal robes, instead clad simply, a symbol of penance. Some chroniclers say you stood barefoot in the snow for 3 days, waiting outside the gates before the Pope would grant you an audience. Whether or not that's literally true, historians still argue whether this detail was an embellishment designed to shame you eternally, or an honest testament to your humility. Either way, the image has become iconic, the proud emperor humbled, waiting in the cold, his crown less a symbol of power and more a weight pressing down on his bowed head. Inside the castle, Pope Gregory VII holds court like a man who knows he's won a psychological victory. By making you wait, he's forced the empire and everyone who watches to acknowledge the supremacy of spiritual authority over temporal power. It's not just about you, it's about the message sent to kings and princes across Europe. But don't mistake this for surrender. You understand the necessity of this act. It buys you time. It shifts the narrative. And it keeps the lines of negotiation open. History remembers this as a moment of humiliation for Henry IV. But you see it as a pause before the storm. A carefully calculated step in a long campaign for control. Outside those cold stone walls, the ripples of your penance spread quickly. The German duchies, already restless, take this as a sign that their emperor is vulnerable. The Saxons, in particular, view this moment with eager anticipation. Their revolt simmers just beneath the surface, fueled by centuries of grievances and a fierce desire to shake off imperial control. Your submission to the Pope feels like the last thread holding them back is about to snap. You can almost hear the whispers of your enemies, nobles, and princes who have long chafed under your rule, watching for any sign of weakness to exploit. They see an emperor humbled by a religious authority, and they smell opportunity. Alliances that once seemed firm start to wobble. Loyalties are tested, and the political landscape shifts beneath your feet, like the ice cracking underfoot. But you are not a man to be easily broken. You steel yourself against the cold and the humiliation, knowing that history is watching and that your next moves will be crucial. This moment of submission will be remembered. Yes, but it will not define you unless you let it. You are already plotting your comeback, already thinking ahead to the battles, both political and martial, that will follow. Canossa is more than a castle. It is a crucible. It will test your patience, your resolve, and your ability to navigate the treacherous waters of power, faith, and loyalty. And as you stand there, snow melting slowly on your shoulders, You feel the weight of the empire pressing down, heavier than any crown could ever be. So, take a deep breath, brace yourself against the cold, and prepare. The road ahead is long and fraught with peril, but it is yours to walk barefoot or not. As you leave the biting cold of Canossa behind, the reality of your situation settles in like a thick fog. Word of your penance spreads through the empire faster than wildfire in a dry summer, and the reactions are as varied as the lands you govern. Some see it as a necessary act of humility, a demonstration of piety that restores the balance between church and crown. Others, especially the ambitious German princes and restless nobles, whisper that their emperor is a man broken, a ruler whose authority can be challenged. The political landscape, already complex, now fractures further. Your absence at the imperial court has created a vacuum, and opportunists move swiftly to fill it. In the grand halls of your rivals, you hear the clinking of goblets and the murmurs of conspiracies. The princes of Saxony and Bavaria eye each other with suspicion and greed, their ambitions ignited by the scent of a weakening monarch. They plot quietly, far from the prying eyes of your loyalists. The Saxons, in particular, are a powder keg, ready to ignite. Their grievances run deep centuries of imperial interference. Forced levies and cultural suppression have left them simmering with resentment. Your submission to the Pope feels to them like the last straw, proof that the emperor can be humbled, and that their long quest for autonomy might finally be within reach. You probably didn't expect this level of political opportunism when you bent the knee at Canossa, but the medieval world is unforgiving and quick to judge. The delicate threads of loyalty you once wove through your vassals begin to unravel. Some bishops and nobles shift their allegiance toward the papacy or rival claimants, further undermining your grip on power. Meanwhile, your enemies at court aren't just sitting idly. Behind closed doors, alliances form like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Nobles who once fought alongside you now whisper of replacing the weak emperor with a leader who can restore strength and order. Counter-kings appear, asserting claims to your throne with the backing of rebellious princes and the church. Yet, despite these threats, you find moments of strength and clarity. You rally loyal supporters, reminding them that the emperor is not so easily cast down. Your charisma, strategic mind, and the loyalty of certain powerful nobles become your weapons as much as swords and siege engines. The tension is palpable. Every march you order, every alliance you forge, carries the weight of survival, not just your own, but that of the empire itself. As winter fades into spring, the seeds of rebellion blossom into open conflict. The empire's heart beats unevenly, caught between reverence for the Pope and allegiance to the crown. Historians still argue whether your decision to humble yourself was a masterstroke of political patience or a fatal miscalculation that emboldened your enemies. Whatever the case, the next years will be marked by battles, zegas, and betrayals as you fight to reclaim the authority that slipped through your fingers at Canossa. So, gird yourself for the storm. The path ahead is shadowed by doubt and danger, but it's yours to navigate, with the eyes of history watching every step. You find yourself marching through the shifting, patchwork heart of the empire, a land where every stone and every field seems steeped in centuries of grudges, alliances, and shifting loyalties. The political map here isn't drawn in neat lines, but in tangled webs spun by dukes, counts, bishops, and restless peasants, each with their own stake in the empire's fate. As you trudge these ancient roads, you can feel the weight of every gaze, some wary, some hostile, others cautiously hopeful. This isn't just a campaign of armies. It's a war of influence waged in shadowed halls and muddy villages alike. You probably assumed ruling the Holy Roman Empire would be simpler when you first wore the crown. But reality hits like a hard winter frost. The German duchies, Saxony, Bavaria, Swabia, Franconia, and Lorraine are like 5 stubborn siblings who barely speak but constantly jostle for their father's favor. Their princes guard their autonomy fiercely, and many resent the idea of centralized imperial authority telling them what to do. You quickly learn that winning a battle is often easier than winning the loyalty of a powerful duke. The heartland itself is a mosaic of cultures and histories. Saxons hold fast to ancient customs and grudges, unwilling to submit to what they see as foreign domination. Bavarians are proud and often aloof. Their loyalty is conditional as the shifting mountain mists. Franconians and Swabians are caught somewhere in between, balancing old tribal identities with emerging imperial ties. The stakes are not just political, they are deeply personal and cultural, wrapped up in identity and survival. You ride through towns where the markets buzz with gossip and rumor, some whispering about your weaknesses after Canossa, others still loyal to your banner. Along the roads, you encounter knights in battered armor, peasants clutching pitchforks, and clergy whose allegiance is as uncertain as the weather. Each encounter reminds you that power here is fluid, and trust is a precious commodity. Sieges and skirmishes mark your progress. Castles and fortified towns rise like jagged teeth from the landscape, each a stronghold of a rebellious noble or a strategic prize for the empire. The loyalty of these fortresses can turn the tide of campaigns, and you know that conquering them requires not just force, but cunning diplomacy. You send envoys to parley, offering mercy to some and threats to others. Sometimes a gift of gold or a well-placed marriage alliance can secure a fortress faster than siege engines. Historians still argue whether your campaign through the duchies was more about military might or political maneuvering. The truth is, both were indispensable. Your generals hammer away at enemy strongholds, but your advisors work tirelessly to weave a network of loyalties and alliances beneath the surface. You learn to read the subtle language of noble courts, the whispered complaints, the furtive glances, the secret meetings held under the veil of night. Your journey through the heartland is also a sensory immersion in medieval life. The smell of wood smoke mingles with the earthy scent of tilled fields. You hear the clang of blacksmiths hammering, the laughter of children playing in dusty streets, and the distant toll of church bells, marking hours and prayers. Nights are cold and often restless, with the howls of wolves or the crackling of campfires keeping you company. Despite the constant strain, moments of camaraderie emerge. You share bread and wine with loyal knights, exchange stories and grievances with local lords, and listen to minstrels whose songs tell of heroes and betrayals alike. These connections remind you that even in the chaos of war, life continues, and the people you govern are not just subjects but fellow travelers on this tumultuous road. Yet, shadows lurk. Every handshake could hide a dagger. Every smile, a mask. You feel the growing tension of forces unseen, but deeply felt. Nobles who once pledged loyalty begin to waver, swayed by promises from rival factions or their own ambitions. You sense that your presence is as much a provocation as a reassurance. The Empire's pulse quickens as you move deeper into this maze of power. Your campaign is no longer just about reclaiming rebellious lands, but about holding together an empire teetering on the brink of fragmentation. The political landscape shifts daily, and you must be as adaptable as you are resolute. Amid this turmoil, your own resolve is tested. You remind yourself that every journey begins with a single step, and this campaign through the heartland is a critical part of your strategy to reclaim imperial authority. You are both emperor and general, diplomat and warrior, tasked with the impossible, to hold together a kingdom where loyalty is bought, sold, and often stolen. So, as you ride through these contested lands, remember the stakes. Every castle you capture, every alliance you forge, and every rebellion you quell is a step toward the fragile unity of the empire. The road is long and fraught with danger, but with patience and determination, you push forward the embodiment of a ruler fighting not just for power, but for the very soul of his realm. The air grows heavy with tension as you approach Saxony, a land where ancient grudges and fierce independence have brewed for generations, like a stubborn storm refusing to pass. The rebellion here isn't just a political nuisance, it's a tempest, roaring with the fury of peasants and nobles alike, each driven by centuries of resentment and a burning desire to reclaim their autonomy. You're about to face a revolt that will test the limits of your power and the endurance of your resolve. As you enter Saxon territory, the landscape shifts. Dense forests stretch like dark waves. Rivers cut deep valleys, and villages cluster tightly along narrow roads. The people here are hardened by cold winters and harsher lords. Their faces, weathered and wary, watch you with suspicion. You can feel the simmering unrest beneath their guarded gazes. As a reminder that this land has never easily bowed to external rule. The Saxon rebellion is not a mere fringe uprising. It's a full-scale insurrection fueled by a coalition of discontented nobles and restless commoners. Years of heavy taxation, forced conscription, and encroaching imperial authority have pushed these proud people to the brink. Their leaders, charismatic and cunning, rally men with promises of freedom and vengeance, igniting a fire that spreads quickly through the forests and fields. You probably didn't expect to face such fierce opposition here so soon. But history has a way of catching rulers unprepared. The rebellion erupts like wildfire, with bands of insurgents launching swift raids on imperial garrisons, burning supply lines, and sowing chaos in towns loyal to you. Villages are torn between fear and defiance, caught in the crossfire of a war that's as much about identity as it is about power. Your generals warn you of the challenges ahead. Saxony's terrain favors the rebels, who know every hidden path and wooded glen like the back of their hands. Ambushes are common, and your forces, though disciplined, struggle against an enemy that fights with desperation and local knowledge. Sieges drag on painfully, resources dwindle, and morale fluctuates like a candle in the wind. Inside your war council, debates rage. Some advise brutal crackdowns, harsh punishments, scorched earth tactics, and displays of force designed to crush rebellion quickly. Others caution restraint, fearing that excessive cruelty will only deepen hatred and fuel further unrest. You weigh these counsel carefully, knowing that each choice will ripple through the empire's fragile fabric. Historians still argue about the nature and scale of the Saxon rebellion during this period. Was it primarily a peasant revolt driven by economic hardship, or a coordinated, noble-led insurrection against imperial overreach? The truth likely lies somewhere in between. A complex tapestry of motivations and alliances. You find yourself walking a tightrope between asserting authority and avoiding alienation. Your campaigns in Saxony become a grueling war of attrition, marked by fierce battles, diplomatic overtures, and occasional truces. You send envoys to negotiate with rebellious lords, offering pardons and privileges in exchange for loyalty, while simultaneously ordering punitive expeditions to recapture lost ground. The rebellion also forces you to reconsider the nature of imperial power. It's not enough to command armies. You must understand the grievances and aspirations of the people you rule. You begin to see that governance requires more than force. It demands legitimacy, trust, and sometimes compromise. As winter thaws and spring dawns, the fighting intensifies. Your armies clash with rebel bands in dense forests and open fields. Each victory hard won and costly. Supply lines are stretched thin, and the ever-present threat of ambush keeps your commanders vigilant. You personally oversee key operations, riding into battlefields where the cries of men and horses mingle with the thunder of hooves and clashing steel. Despite the hardships, moments of humanity emerge amidst the chaos. You witness villagers tending wounded soldiers, clergy offering last rites, and rebels who fight not out of hatred but desperation. These glimpses remind you that the rebellion is not a simple battle of good versus evil, but a tragic conflict born of fractured loyalties and unmet needs. Your leadership during the Saxon Rebellion becomes a defining chapter of your reign. You adapt strategies, balancing military pressure with political negotiation, seeking to rebuild bridges even as you break down resistance. The lessons learned here shape your approach to governance and war for years to come. The Saxon Rebellion is a crucible, a test of your ability to hold an empire together in the face of fierce opposition. It forces you to confront the limits of power and the complexities of rule. The land is scarred. Lives are lost. But through this trial, you forge a path forward, inching closer to reclaiming control over a realm that seems constantly on the edge of fracturing. So, as you stand amid the smoke and ruin, remember the cost of empire and the resilience required to wield a crown. The Saxon fires burn bright, but your will burns brighter, lighting the way through the darkest nights of your campaign. The siege engines creak and groan as your forces surround yet another rebellious castle. Its stone walls, standing stubbornly against the onslaught, the scent of burning wood and smoke hangs thick in the air, mingling with the damp earth and sweat of soldiers, laboring day and night. This is the brutal reality of your campaign, the slow, grinding process of breaking the will of those who dare defy you. Every stone knocked loose, every arrow loosed, every shouted command is a step in the relentless march to restore order to an empire unraveling at the seams. You find yourself standing atop a muddy hill, looking down at the fortress that has become both a symbol and a prize. These castles aren't mere military installations. They are power centers, bastions of noble autonomy, and, sometimes, sanctuaries for those who reject your rule. Taking one is not just about military victory, it's about sending a message to all who might consider rebellion. The siege is a test of endurance, patience, and cunning. Your engineers labor tirelessly, constructing wooden towers and battering rams, digging trenches, and laying siege works designed to choke the defenders. Days turn into weeks, and the air becomes thick with tension and the stink of unwashed men. Hunger knocks at both sides, and morale wavers like a candle flickering in the wind. Inside the fortress, the defenders steel themselves, aware that surrender means humiliation or death, but resistance might mean survival or glory. The thick walls absorb the thunderous blows of your siege engines, and arrows rain from the battlements like deadly hail. Each breach attempted is met with fierce resistance, boiling oil poured on attackers, stones hurled, and desperate sorties that test the mettle of your soldiers. You probably didn't expect siege warfare to be such a slow, grinding affair. History often romanticizes battles as swift and decisive. But sieges are a war of attrition, taxing not just weapons and men, but nerves and willpower. The psychological strain weighs heavily on everyone involved. The sound of night watches, the whispered prayers, and the occasional crack of musket or arrow become the soundtrack of this grim reality. Historians still debate the effectiveness and ethics of your siege tactics during this campaign. Were your reprisals excessively harsh, fueling further rebellion? Or were they necessary measures to bring order to a fractious realm? The truth is complex. As each fortress taken strengthens your grip, but also deepens resentment among the populace. Amidst the grimness, moments of ingenuity and valor shine through. Your engineers devise clever machines and tactics to outwit defenders, while your knights and foot soldiers display courage and discipline under fire. Negotiations occasionally punctuate the bloodshed, as some defenders choose surrender over annihilation, trading their freedom for mercy. The siege is also a crucible for leadership. You must maintain discipline, inspire your men, and manage scarce resources, while navigating the delicate politics of your own commanders and allies. The slightest misstep could lead to disaster, desertions, mutinies, or an enemy sortie that breaks your lines. Outside the walls, the countryside watches and waits. The siege's outcome will ripple through the surrounding lands, influencing loyalties and shaping the campaign's trajectory. Peasants and townsfolk endure the disruptions, caught between the warring powers, their lives upended by the slow grind of war. You reflect on the toll this siege takes, not just on the soldiers and nobles, but on yourself. The burden of command grows heavier with each passing day, the demands of empire pressing relentlessly. Yet, you know that these sieges are crucial. Each fortress captured is a foothold regained, a step toward reclaiming the fractured empire. As the walls finally begin to crumble, the defenders' resolve falters, and the gates are breached. A mixture of triumph and sorrow washes over you. Victory comes at a cost, lives lost, homes destroyed. Trust eroded. The siege is won, but the war for the empire's heart continues. So, as you watch the banners of rebellion fall and your own rise in their place, remember the complexity of power. Sieges are not just battles of stone and steel, but struggles for hearts and minds, where mercy and ruthlessness walk a fine line. The echoes of these walls will linger long after the dust settles, shaping the legacy of your reign. The harsh taste of iron lingers in the air as you witness the consequences of your decisions ripple through the empire. Your justice, once measured and tempered by wisdom, now takes on a harsher edge. The brutality of reprisals after rebellions and sieges unsettles even your most loyal supporters, casting long shadows over your reign. You find yourself navigating a treacherous path between asserting authority and preserving the fragile unity of a fractured realm. As news of your harsh justice spreads, villages whisper in fear, and noble courts murmur with unease. You probably never intended to sow such dread, but in times of war, the line between order and oppression blurs. Rebels who once sought freedom now face the full weight of imperial Rothland confiscated, title stripped, and sometimes executions carried out with grim efficiency. The spectacle of punishment is meant to deter further defiance, but it also deepens wounds that may never heal. Your hand is forced by the relentless cycle of rebellion and resistance. Each act of leniency risks emboldening enemies, while every act of severity risks alienating those you wish to govern. The balance is delicate, and you struggle with the moral burden of choices that affect thousands of lives. The faces of the punished haunt your thoughts, farmers, knights, clerics, each a piece in the vast tapestry of your empire's suffering. The empire's patchwork of loyalties begins to fray further. Some nobles grow wary, questioning whether the emperor they once followed is becoming a tyrant. Others, hardened by years of conflict, see harsh justice as necessary to restore order and respect. The common folk, caught between these power struggles, bear the brunt of punitive measures, their lives disrupted by confiscations, forced labor, and the constant threat of violence. Historians still argue whether your approach was a calculated necessity or a misstep that fueled the very rebellions you sought to quell. Was your severity a tool to maintain order, or did it deepen the cycle of hatred and resistance? The answer is complex, tangled in the realities of medieval governance and the harshness of war. You find solace in the counsel of trusted advisors who remind you of the empire's fragile fabric and the importance of measured responses. Yet, even among them, opinions clash. Some advocate for mercy and reconciliation, while others push for uncompromising strength. Your decisions become a reflection of this tension, a push and pull between justice and pragmatism. In the midst of these challenges, you witness acts of unexpected kindness and humanity. Clergy intercede on behalf of prisoners, nobles ransom captured knights, and villagers offer aid to wounded soldiers, regardless of allegiance. These moments are fragile yet vital threads of hope in a tapestry frayed by conflict. The harshness of your justice also forces you to reflect on the nature of power itself. You realize that ruling an empire is not merely about commanding armies or issuing decrees, but about understanding the hearts and minds of those you govern. Authority gained through fear may secure obedience, but it rarely wins loyalty. As the campaign grinds on, you begin to experiment with policies that blend firmness with clemency. You grant pardons to some rebels willing to swear allegiance, restore lands to those who prove loyal, and encourage rebuilding efforts in war-torn regions. These measures aim to heal wounds and rebuild trust, yet they are met with suspicion and resistance from both sides. The empire remains a battleground, not just of armies, but of ideas and ideals. The tension between harsh justice and mercy plays out in courtrooms, councils, and battlefields alike. Your reign becomes a constant negotiation, a dance between strength and compassion. Through it all, you carry the weight of your choices, aware that history will judge you not only by victories won, but by the legacy you leave behind. The faces of those affected by your justice, both the punished and the pardoned, linger in your mind, a reminder of the human cost of power. So, as you navigate this precarious path, remember that justice is not a fixed point, but a journey, a balance that shifts with time and circumstance. The harshness you wield today may pave the way for peace tomorrow, but only if tempered with wisdom and understanding. The echo of the Pope's voice reaches you like thunder, rolling across stormy skies. The Church has declared you deposed. This pronouncement isn't just words on parchment. It's a spiritual and political bombshell that shakes the very foundations of your rule. Excommunication looms like a dark cloud, threatening to sever you from the sacred body of Christendom and strip your legitimacy in the eyes of nobles, clergy, and common folk alike. The battle for your throne has taken a new, more dangerous turn. You stand at a crossroads where temporal power and spiritual authority collide. The Pope's decree sends shockwaves through the empire, emboldening your enemies and sowing doubt among your supporters. Bishops who once pledged loyalty now hesitate, fearing eternal damnation if they remain by your side. Nobles weigh their allegiances carefully, calculating whether to stand with their emperor or heed the church's call. The political landscape fractures further, and the air is thick with uncertainty. The declaration of deposition is more than a personal attack. It's a challenge to the very idea of kingship. The Pope asserts that his spiritual authority grants him the right to remove an emperor who defies the church. This claim is revolutionary and contested, sparking fierce debates among theologians, lawyers, and rulers across Europe. Historians still argue whether this moment marked a turning point in the balance between church and state, or was simply another episode in a long-standing power struggle. Your response must be swift and decisive. To accept the deposition would mean surrender, but to reject it risks eternal damnation and political isolation. You choose défiance, asserting that your authority comes from God and that no earthly power, even the Pope, can unseat a rightful emperor without cause. This stance rallies loyalists, but also hardens opposition. The emperor's court becomes a hive of activity, with envoys dispatched to secure alliances and nobles summoned to affirm their loyalty. Propaganda campaigns emphasize your divine right to rule, portraying the Pope as a usurper, meddling in secular affairs. The struggle shifts from battlefields to chapels and councils, where words carry the weight of armies. Amidst this turmoil, rival claimants to the throne emerge, backed by rebellious princes and papal support. The empire teeters on the edge of civil war, with factions forming around competing visions of authority. Cities and regions choose sides, and the fabric of the empire threatens to unravel completely. Your armies remain loyal, but are stretched thin, engaged in skirmishes and sieges across the realm. The threat of excommunication complicates recruitment and supply, as some nobles hesitate to fight for a condemned ruler. Yet, from your personal charisma and strategic acumen, keep the core of your forces united. The Church's declaration also sparks unrest among the populace. Commoners, who often rely on the Church for guidance, grapple with conflicting loyalties. Some view you as a heretic, others as a victim of papal overreach. The social fabric strains under these pressures, with tensions flaring in towns and villages. You probably didn't anticipate the full impact of excommunication and deposition when your conflict with the Pope began. But now the stakes are crystal clear. This is not just a political battle, it's a contest over the soul of Christendom, with far-reaching consequences. As you navigate this perilous chapter, you seek support from distant allies and the Holy Roman Empire's complex network of loyalties. You engage in diplomatic efforts to isolate your rivals and maintain legitimacy. The war is no longer solely fought with swords, but with words, symbols, and spiritual authority. Historians still debate the effectiveness of your defiance and the long-term effects of the Church's unprecedented intervention in imperial affairs. Some see it as a bold assertion of royal sovereignty, others as a tragic overreach that plunged the empire into chaos. Through the turmoil, you remain steadfast, determined to reclaim your throne and restore order. The road ahead is perilous, filled with betrayal, battle, and uncertainty. Yet, you carry the weight of empire on your shoulders, driven by conviction and ambition. So, as the Pope's declaration hangs over you like a shadow, remember that power is never absolute, and legitimacy is a fragile prize. The struggle between crown and cross will shape the destiny of the empire and echo through history for centuries to come. The empire feels fractured, the air heavy with the whispers of counter-kings who claim your throne as their own. Rivals, once hidden in the shadows of court politics, now step forward boldly, their banners unfurled and swords sharpened. This is no mere challenge. It is an outright tearing apart of the fragile unity you have fought so hard to maintain. The realm, caught in the grip of civil war, groans under the weight of divided loyalties and fractured authority. You find yourself surrounded not only by external enemies, but by internal fractures that cut deep. These counter-kings, often nobles with their own claims or grievances, seize the moment offered by your struggles with the church and rebellious duchies to assert their ambitions. Some carry papal blessings as badges of legitimacy. Others rally regional support with promises of stronger, more just governance. The battlefield is no longer just physical, it is ideological, where the very idea of who should rule is hotly contested. The emergence of these rivals complicates your campaign immeasurably. Every city, fortress, and noble house becomes a potential battleground, swayed by promises, threats, or ancient loyalties. The bonds of fealty that once held your empire together fray under pressure, and you realize that your fight is as much to preserve the concept of the Holy Roman Emperor as it is to hold the throne. Your forces must stretch thinner, guarding borders and quelling uprisings, while confronting rival armies seeking to carve out their own domains. Skirmishes flare up in towns, castles change hands with bewildering speed, and alliances shift like the wind. Each victory feels tentative, each defeat potentially catastrophic. You probably didn't expect your reign to become a chess game of so many players, each plotting moves with their own agendas. The complexity of managing such a fractured realm demands not just military skill, but diplomatic finesse and unyielding resolve. Within your own court, tensions run high. Advisors debate strategies, some urging immediate strikes against rivals, others calling for negotiated settlements to prevent further bloodshed. The line between friend and foe blurs as nobles hedge their bets, waiting to see which side will prevail. The church's role remains pivotal. Papal support for certain counter-kings lends them spiritual legitimacy, swaying undecided lords and commoners alike. You counter with your own declarations of divine right, invoking tradition and precedent to bolster your claim. The battle for hearts and minds rages alongside the clash of swords. Amidst this chaos, you cling to moments of clarity and purpose. Your leadership, personal courage, and vision become beacons for those loyal to the imperial cause. You travel between courts, rallying support, forging alliances through marriages and oaths, and reminding the realm of the empire's grandeur and unity. Historians still argue about the impact of these rival claimants on your reign. Some see them as mere opportunists, exploiting a weakened emperor. Others as genuine challengers, with visions for a different future. Regardless, their rise prolongs the conflict and deepens the wounds in the empire's fabric. The civil war leaves scars that will last generations, towns ravaged, families divided, economies strained. The common people bear the heaviest burdens, caught between armies and shifting allegiances. Yet, through it all, your determination to reclaim your throne never wavers. You learn that ruling in such times demands not just strength but patience and adaptability. The path to restoration is neither swift nor easy, but every hard-fought battle and every diplomatic victory brings you closer to your goal. So, as you face these rival kings and the challenges they embody. Remember that the throne you fight for is more than a seat. It is a symbol of unity, tradition, and the fragile order you strive to preserve. The struggle is far from over, but your resolve shines through the darkest nights. The call to arms echoes through the fractured empire once again, and you rise to rally your loyalists. Your voice carries the weight of an emperor determined not to be dethroned, not just by rebellious nobles or rebellious factions, but by history itself. You gather your banners and muster your forces, aware that every soldier, every knight, and every banner-bearer represents a thread in the tapestry of your sovereignty. Threads you must weave together before the fabric tears beyond repair. The assembly of your loyalists is a complex symphony of politics, personal loyalties, and raw ambition. Knights from distant duchies, weary from skirmishes and battles past, gather at your side, some out of genuine fealty, others swayed by promises of reward or fear of the alternative. You meet with dukes and counts, reminding them of shared history, ancient oaths, and the glory that comes from unity. The court buzzes with plans, strategies, and whispered doubts, but your presence instills a renewed sense of purpose. You probably did not expect the depth of division within your own ranks, nor the challenge of uniting such diverse and often conflicting interests. Each noble brings his own agenda, his own grievances, and his own visions for the future. Yet, despite the fractures, a core of loyalty endures, anchored by respect for your leadership and the recognition that the empire needs a strong hand to guide it through chaos. The mustering of forces is not merely a military exercise, it is a political theater. You navigate a maze of alliances, negotiating marriages, granting titles, and balancing favors to secure the support necessary for the campaign ahead. The negotiation table is as critical as the battlefield, for a single, betrayed ally can shift the tides of war. Your generals, seasoned by years of conflict, advise on troop movements, Siegerstrategies, and supply lines. The logistics of war weigh heavily, feeding thousands of men, ensuring armor and weapons, and maintaining morale amid harsh weather and relentless campaigning. You walk among your soldiers, sharing words of encouragement, listening to their concerns, and reminding them of the cause they fight for. Historians still debate how much your personal charisma and leadership influenced the loyalty of your followers. Some argue it was the empire's enduring institutions that held your forces together. Others point to your ability to inspire and command respect, even in the darkest hours. Whatever the truth, your presence is undeniably a linchpin in the fragile coalition. The campaign itself is marked by a mixture of calculated strikes and defensive maneuvers. You focus on consolidating control over key territories, disrupting enemy supply lines, and targeting strategic fortresses. Battles are fought with a brutal combination of cavalry charges, infantry clashes, and the use of emerging siege technologies. The chaos of war fills the air, with the clang of steel, the thunder of hooves, and the cries of men. Despite the constant dangers, moments of humanity emerge. You see the bonds forged between soldiers, the quiet prayers of chaplains, and the acts of mercy extended to prisoners and civilians. These moments remind you of the broader stakes, the lives behind the banners, and the future that hangs in the balance. The struggle to rally loyalists is not without setbacks, defections, betrayals, and miscommunications threaten to unravel your efforts. Each loss is a painful reminder of the precariousness of power, but each victory fuels your determination. The tide of war shifts like a tempest, unpredictable and relentless. Amid this tumult, you remain a symbol of continuity. Your presence at the front lines and your engagement with nobles and commoners alike forge a connection that transcends the fractures within the empire. You embody the hope that the empire can be reunited and strengthened. So, as your forces gather and prepare for the battles ahead, remember that leadership is not just about commands issued from thrones, but about inspiring loyalty, managing complexity, and carrying the hopes of an empire on your shoulders. The road to victory is arduous, but with your loyalists rallied, the fight to reclaim your realm takes on new life. The grip of winter tightens around your campaign like iron shackles, and with it comes a host of brutal hardships that gnaw relentlessly at your forces. The cold seeps into bones and spirit alike, turning rivers to ice and roads to treacherous morasses of mud and slush. Supply lines stretch thin and snap under pressure, leaving soldiers hungry, weary, and vulnerable. The unforgiving weather becomes an invisible enemy, as deadly and unpredictable as any opposing army you face. You ride through landscapes transformed by frost-bare trees, standing like gaunt sentinels against a grey sky. Fields coated in white silence. The biting wind cuts through your cloak and gnaws at exposed skin. A constant reminder that even the mightiest emperor cannot command the elements. Camps once bustling with activity now feel subdued. Fires burning low as men huddle in meager shelters, battling not only external foes, but the creeping despair born of cold and hunger. The logistics of winter warfare present a nightmare of their own. Wagons laden with grain and salted meat struggle along frozen, uneven roads, often delayed or lost to ambushes. Horses, essential to cavalry and transport, weaken and sometimes perish in the relentless cold, further crippling your mobility. You watch as frostbite and illness claim as many lives as the sword, a silent toll that weighs heavily on your conscience. Your soldiers' morale wavers under these conditions. The initial zeal of battle gives way to exhaustion and frustration. The camaraderie that once fueled their spirit now battles with homesickness and the stark reality of survival. You take to visiting the camps, sharing words of encouragement, reminding men of the cause that binds you together. Yet, you know these are fragile comforts against the harshness of winter. Historians still debate the impact of winter hardships on the course of your campaign. Some argue that the cold decisively favored the rebels, who were better acclimated and used to guerrilla tactics in familiar terrain. Others point to your resilience and adaptability, crediting your leadership with preventing a complete collapse. The truth lies in the grueling stalemate that marked much of the winter months. A brutal pause in a war of attrition. In this frozen theater, you learn to innovate. Supply caches are established in strategic locations, and winter quarters are fortified to shelter your men. Foraging parties scour the surrounding lands. Though scarcity often limits their success, you instruct commanders to adjust tactics, favoring defensive postures and targeted strikes over open battles that risk catastrophic losses. Disease spreads swiftly in the cramped and unsanitary camps. Dysentery, pneumonia, and scurvy ravage your ranks, thinning the fighting force and forcing you to make difficult decisions about who stays on the front lines and who must rest or retreat. The medical knowledge of the time offers little reprieve, and prayers mingle with desperation in the quiet hours of the night. Meanwhile, the political arena outside the battlefield continues its own cold war. Nobles debate the wisdom of prolonging conflict through harsh winter campaigns. Some counsel negotiation and truces to preserve strength, while others urge relentless pressure to capitalize on rebel weaknesses. You weigh these voices carefully, balancing military necessity with political pragmatism. The people in towns and villages caught in the crossfire endure their own winter trials, food shortages, damaged infrastructure, and the constant threat of violence turn daily life into a struggle for survival. Your efforts to provide relief are hampered by the very conditions that challenge your armies. But you recognize that winning hearts is as crucial as winning battles. Despite these trials, your resolve hardens like the frozen ground beneath your feet. The hardships forge a bond between you and your commanders and soldiers, a shared experience of endurance that tempers resolve. Your leadership in these bleak months becomes a testament to the resilience required of a ruler in turbulent times. As spring's first tentative warmth begins to thaw the land, you prepare to renew your campaign with lessons learned from winter's harsh tutelage. You anticipate the battles ahead with cautious optimism. I'm aware that the enemy too has suffered, and that the tides of war may yet shift again. So, as the Empire endures winter's icy grip, remember that power is not only forged in the heat of battle, but also tempered in the cold of endurance. The harsh months ahead test not just armies, but the very will to govern, and your strength in these times will shape the legacy you leave behind. The campaign twists and turns unpredictably, a chaotic dance of retreats and surprise victories that blur the line between heroism and folly. You find yourself caught in a relentless cycle, sometimes advancing with thunderous force, other times pulled back by cunning foes and the harsh realities of war. The battlefield is a place where fortunes change on a whim, and your survival depends as much on quick thinking as on the strength of your armies. As you ride alongside your commanders, you feel the restless energy of men, hardened by months of conflict, but still hungry for triumph. The taste of victory is sweet but fleeting. Every success is shadowed by the possibility of a devastating counterattack. Skirmishes erupt in dense forests and open fields, each demanding different tactics and testing your adaptability. You probably didn't expect warfare to be so mercurial. Battles are not neat and decisive clashes, but often confusing melees, where smoke, tournoise, and fear cloud judgment. The fog of war is literal and metaphorical, as dust and blood mingle, and the cries of the wounded echo across the plains. Surprise victories lift morale and inspire hope among your forces. A well-timed charge, a feigned retreat, or the sudden appearance of reinforcements can turn the tide of a battle. These moments are celebrated with fervor. Songs sung around campfires, and tales that grow in grandeur with each telling. Yet, you know better than to let triumph breed complacency. Tactical retreats, though less glorious, are equally vital. They preserve your forces, allowing you to regroup, resupply, and strike anew. These withdrawals are not signs of weakness, but calculated moves in a larger game, designed to stretch enemy resources and exploit their overconfidence. You must constantly balance aggression with caution, a delicate dance that tests your leadership. Historians still argue whether your campaign's unpredictable nature was a sign of strategic genius, adapting to circumstances, or evidence of a disorganized and reactive command. The truth likely lies in a mix of both, reflecting the complexities of medieval warfare and the immense challenges you face. Amid the chaos, you learn the importance of intelligence and reconnaissance. Scouts become invaluable, their reports shaping decisions and preventing ambushes. Yet, information is often incomplete or misleading, and the fog of war ensures that uncertainty is a constant companion. The shifting fortunes of battle also strain relationships with allies and vassals. Success breeds loyalty, But setbacks can inspire doubt and desertion. You invest time in diplomacy even as you marshal forces, recognizing that political alliances are as critical as military strength. The human cost of these battles is stark. You witness the bravery of soldiers facing overwhelming odds, the grief of commanders burying the fallen, and the resilience of communities caught in the crossfire. These experiences deepen your understanding of the weight of command. Despite the turmoil, your resolve remains unshaken. Each battle, whether won or lost, teaches lessons that refine your strategies and strengthen your leadership. You adapt, innovate, and persevere, driven by a vision of a united empire under your rule. So, as the campaign's unpredictable rhythm continues, remember that warfare is as much about endurance and adaptability as it is about strength. Your journey is a testament to the complexity of power and the relentless spirit required to claim and hold it. The Battle of Langensalza unfolds like a tempest, the earth shaking under the thunderous charge of hooves and the clash of steel. You stand at the heart of this maelstrom, the air thick with the acrid smell of sweat, blood, and burning wood. This engagement is not just another skirmish. It is a defining moment, a brutal crucible where your leadership, strategy, and the very fate of your reign will be tested against formidable foes determined to fracture the empire. As dawn breaks, mist clings to the rolling hills around Langensalza, softening the harsh outlines of soldiers and banners alike. The landscape, a patchwork of fields, forests, and small villages, becomes a stage for the violent dance of battle. You watch as your troops form ranks, the disciplined lines of knights and infantry poised for the chaos to come. The tension is palpable, a collective breath, held in anticipation. You probably didn't expect this fight to be so fierce and uncertain. The enemy is well prepared, their commanders skilled, and their warriors resolute. The battle ebbs and flows like a storm at sea, charges met with countercharges, sieges of broken ground won and lost repeatedly. Every moment demands split-second décision, the weight of countless lives resting on your commands. The clash is brutal and unrelenting. Cavalry sweeps across the fields with terrifying speed, their lances aimed to pierce armor and morale alike. Infantry holds the lines with pikes and shields, locking in deadly grapples that leave the ground churned and stained. Archers rain volleys of arrows, filling the sky with deadly hail. The noise is deafening, the roar of battle, mingling with the cries of the wounded and the clash of metal. In the midst of this turmoil, you feel the surge of adrenaline, the fierce clarity that comes with the will to survive and triumph. You rally your commanders, adjusting tactics as the situation evolves. You exploit weaknesses, reinforce faltering lines, and inspire your men to stand firm against the tide. Victory is never guaranteed. It is seized through courage, cunning, and sheer endurance. Historians still debate the precise outcomes and significance of the Battle of Langensalza. Some view it as a decisive moment that showcased your military prowess. Others as a Pyrrhic victory that failed to turn the tide decisively. What is clear is that the battle exemplifies the chaotic and brutal nature of medieval warfare, where fortunes shift rapidly and the cost of conflict is borne heavily. Amid the carnage, acts of heroism and tragedy unfold. Knights charge fearlessly, banners held high, even as comrades fall. Medics and chaplains move amidst the wounded, their presence a flicker of compassion in the darkness. You witness both the best and worst of humanity, the valor that inspires, and the desperation that drives men to extremes. The aftermath is sobering. Fields littered with the fallen. The cries of survivors mingling with the cold wind. The cost of battle is measured not just in land gained or lost, but in lives forever changed. You walk among your men, offering words of comfort and resolve, aware that the road ahead remains perilous. Beyond the battlefield, the battle's ripple effects reshape the political landscape. Allies gain confidence, enemies reassess strategies, and the delicate balance of power shifts. The empire remains fractured, but moments like Langensalza provide glimmers of hope and renewed determination. You reflect on the lessons learned, the importance of preparation, the value of adaptability, and the unyielding spirit required of a ruler and general. The battle is a harsh teacher, but one that sharpens your resolve and sharpens your vision for the empire's future. So, as the dust settles on Langensalza's fields, remember that victory is never absolute in war. It is earned through sacrifice, strategy, and the enduring will to persevere. Your journey continues, marked by the scars and stories of battles fought in the name of a fractured empire, striving for unity. Diplomacy becomes your silent weapon amid the chaos, a delicate web woven from whispered promises, veiled threats, and fragile alliances. The war cannot be won by steel alone. Power in the medieval world is as much about hearts and minds as it is about castles and swords. You step into the intricate dance of negotiations, where every word carries weight, and every gesture can tilt the balance between peace and further bloodshed. Your court transforms into a bustling arena of envoys, nobles, and clergy, each bearing messages, gifts, or grievances. Ambassadors from distant lands arrive, their eyes flickering with curiosity and calculation. You host councils deep into the night, where candlelight flickers over maps, treaties, and oaths sworn on relics and sacred texts. These meetings are tense, the air thick with unspoken fears and ambitions. You probably didn't expect diplomacy to be so exhausting or precarious. Each alliance you forge is a tightrope walk. One misstep could unravel months of effort. Nobles jockey for position, some sincere in their support, others duplicitous, ready to betray should the winds shift. Marriages are arranged as political contracts, promises etched in bloodlines rather than paper. Trust is a rare and precious commodity. Historians still debate the effectiveness of your diplomatic efforts during this turbulent time. Were these negotiations genuine attempts at peace, or mere tactics to buy time and divide your enemies? The answer likely lies somewhere in between, a pragmatic use of diplomacy to complement military might in a complex power struggle. Your envoys travel far and wide, carrying your messages to courts, both friendly and hostile. They negotiate truces, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts. You make concessions and demands, balancing firmness with flexibility. Sometimes, a well-timed gift or a show of respect can turn a foe into an ally, or at least a neutral party. Yet diplomacy is fraught with challenges, miscommunication, delays, and the slow pace of medieval travel mean that news often arrives too late or is distorted by rumor. You must act on imperfect information, trusting in your instincts and the counsel of trusted advisors. The line between diplomacy and deception is thin, and navigating it requires skill and patience. The shifting alliances reshape the battlefield before a single sword is drawn. Some rebellious nobles reconsider their positions, swayed by promises of lands or titles. Others use diplomatic talks to stall, regroup, or seek external support. You find yourself engaged in a constant game of chess, anticipating moves and counter-moves in a contest that spans courts and battlefields alike. Amid these negotiations, you confront the broader question of legitimacy. The Pope's challenge to your authority casts a long shadow, influencing allies and enemies. You invoke tradition, divine right, and the necessity of strong leadership to argue your case. The Church's role is both a hurdle and an opportunity. Your success depends on navigating this delicate relationship. The toll of endless negotiation weighs heavily. Hours stretch into days, and the fatigue of constant vigilance gnaws at your resolve. Yet, you find moments of hope in a handshake sealing a treaty, a promise made in good faith, or a noble's sincere pledge of loyalty. These instances fuel your determination to see the empire restored. Your diplomatic efforts also highlight the humanity amidst the conflict. You witness the hopes, fears, and ambitions of those caught in the struggle, lords yearning for stability, commoners desperate for peace, and clergy striving for reconciliation. This understanding deepens your sense of responsibility and the complexity of rulership. As the campaign unfolds, you blend diplomacy and warfare into a cohesive strategy. Sieges are softened by offers of surrender. Battles are preceded by envoys seeking terms. This approach, though not always successful, offers a path to minimizing bloodshed and fostering lasting order. So, as you navigate the labyrinth of medieval diplomacy, remember that power is as much about negotiation and understanding as it is about force. The fate of your reign and the empire hinges not only on battles won, but on the alliances forged in shadowed halls, and the trust built through fragile words. Your health, once robust and seemingly unshakable, begins to falter under the immense strain of prolonged war and relentless responsibility. The physical toll of campaigns, sleepless nights, and constant tension settles into your body like a slow poison. Fevers come and go, aches gnaw at your bones, and your once vigorous gait slows imperceptibly. Yet, your mind remains sharp, driven by a determination that refuses to yield. Even as your body weakens, the empire watches with a mix of concern and opportunism. Some whisper that a sick emperor is a dying emperor, their voices carrying through the courts and battlefields alike. Rivals and rebellious nobles sense vulnerability, hoping that illness will sap your will and open the door for their ambitions. Allies grow cautious, unsure if their loyalty will be rewarded, or if the empire will soon seek new leadership. You probably didn't anticipate that the weight of empire would manifest so starkly in your health. Medieval medicine offers little solace. Prayers, herbal remedies, and crude treatments are your only defenses. The uncertainty gnaws at you. Every bout of weakness, a reminder of your mortality and the fragility of your reign. Historians still debate the extent to which your illness affected the course of your campaign. Was your health a limiting factor that hindered decisive action? Or did your indomitable spirit compensate for physical decline? The truth lies in the interplay between vulnerability and resilience that defines your story. Your condition forces adjustments in command. Trusted generals take on greater responsibilities, making critical decisions in your stead. You learn to delegate, balancing control with the necessity of rest and recovery. This shift tests not only your leadership, but the loyalty and competence of those around you. Despite your ailments, the moments of clarity and strategic brilliance emerge. You issue orders that turn the tide of battles, inspire your troops with stirring speeches, and negotiate alliances that strengthen your position. Your presence, though diminished physically, remains a powerful symbol of imperial authority. The personal toll is profound. You grapple with fear and frustration. The knowledge that your time may be limited, clashing with your ambition and duty. Family and close confidence offer support. Their concern, a balm amid the harsh realities of war and illness. The empire itself feels the impact. Your absence from the front lines or council chambers creates power, vacuums, and opportunities for rivals. Courtiers jockey for influence, and factions within your court grow bolder. Maintaining unity becomes a delicate dance, requiring careful management and unwavering resolve. In quiet moments, you reflect on the burdens of kingship, the sacrifice of health, the weight of expectations, and the loneliness of command. These reflections deepen your understanding of the human cost behind the banners and battles, forging a more nuanced vision of leadership. The Church's stance toward your illness is complex. Some see it as divine judgment, others interpret it as a test of faith and endurance. You navigate this spiritual dimension with care, seeking solace in prayer, while asserting your divine right to rule. Your illness also brings moments of humanity and vulnerability. You connect more deeply with those around you: soldiers, servants, advisors, sharing stories, hopes, and fears. These bonds, forged in adversity, strengthen your resolve and provide comfort. As your health fluctuates, the campaign presses on. You adapt strategies to account for physical limitations, relying on trusted deputies and emphasizing long-term planning. This period tests not just your body, but your ability to inspire and lead from a place of vulnerability. So, as you confront the fragility of your own flesh amidst the turmoil of empire, remember that true strength lies not only in vigor, but in the courage to endure and the wisdom to lead through adversity. Your journey is a testament to the resilience of spirit that defines a ruler and the enduring human story behind the crown. The struggle for Mainz becomes a focal point of your campaign, a city whose strategic and symbolic significance cannot be overstated. Mainz, a bustling center of commerce, and religion, and politics, sits astride the Rhine, controlling key trade routes and serving as a gateway between regions. To hold Mainz is to command influence over vast swathes of the empire. To lose it is to invite chaos and embolden rebellion. The battle for this city is not merely a military confrontation, it is a clash over the heart and future of the empire. You approach Mainz with the knowledge that its walls are formidable, its defenders resolute, and its streets a maze of narrow alleys and stone fortifications. The city's clergy and nobles have long held considerable autonomy, and many harbor sympathies with your adversaries or ambitions of their own. The siege is as much about winning hearts within those walls as it is about breaking their defenses. You probably did not expect the siege to test your patience and resources so thoroughly. The defenders employ clever tactics, using the city's architecture and knowledge of its terrain to frustrate your advances. Skirmishes erupt in the shadows. Supplies are cut, and messages slip through the enemy's lines in secret. The struggle becomes a war of attrition, each side probing for weaknesses and exploiting mistakes. The siege's toll is heavy. Your soldiers face bitter cold, scarcity of food, and constant danger. Disease spreads in cramped camps, and morale waxes and wanes with the fortunes of battle. You find yourself balancing harsh discipline with acts of compassion, understanding that the will to endure is as critical as strength of arms. Historians still debate the siege's impact on the broader conflict, Was Mainz a turning point that secured your hold on the empire's core, or a costly distraction that drained resources from other fronts? The answer lies in the complex interplay of military, political, and symbolic factors that define the campaign. Your leadership during the siege is pivotal. You engage in careful planning, delegating responsibilities to trusted commanders, while maintaining overall strategic vision. You navigate the treacherous politics within your own camp, where rivalries and ambitions threaten cohesion. Your presence inspires determination, reminding your forces of the stakes. Negotiations play a subtle role alongside siege engines and swordplay. Envoys reach out to city leaders, offering terms and seeking to exploit divisions within Mainz's defenders. Promises of clemency and privileges mingle with threats and warnings, a delicate dance of persuasion and power. The people within Mainz endure their own hardships. Civilians face shortage, fear, and uncertainty, caught between loyalty and survival. Their suffering weighs on you, a constant reminder of the human cost behind the siege's strategic calculations. Amid the tension, moments of unexpected humanity arise. Messages of surrender are met with mercy. Captured soldiers are treated with respect. These acts of clemency aim to foster goodwill and stability once the city falls, recognizing that peace requires more than conquest. The fall of Mainz, when it comes, is both a triumph and a challenge. Securing the city opens new avenues for your campaign, but also demands efforts to integrate and govern a populace wary of imperial authority. The political landscape shifts, alliances realign, and the empire's fragile unity gains a vital foothold. Your experience at Mainz shapes your understanding of power and rulership. You see that military victory is only the first step. Maintaining order and legitimacy requires wisdom, diplomacy, and justice. The siege teaches you about the complexities of governance amid conflict and the importance of balancing strength with mercy. So, as you reflect on the battle for Mainz, remember that the fate of an empire rests not only on walls and armies, but on the hearts of those who dwell within them. Your leadership in this critical chapter defines the course of your reign and the future of the realm. The papal legates arrive like shadows cast upon a fractured land, their presence stirring the political pot and deepening the divisions within your empire. These envoys of Pope Gregory VII carry not only the weight of spiritual authority, but also the sharp edge of political ambition. Their mission is clear: to sway nobles, to sow discord among your supporters, and to bolster the papal cause in the ongoing power struggle that threatens to unravel the very fabric of your reign. You watch as these legates move through courts and castles, their words honeyed, yet pointed. They preach loyalty to the church over the emperor, emphasizing spiritual salvation, while hinting at temporal consequences for those who falter. Their presence inflames old rivalries and awakens dormant resentments, turning former allies into skeptics and stirring unrest among the populace. You probably did not foresee the profound impact these church emissaries would have on the political landscape. Their influence extends beyond sermons and declarations. They are skilled diplomats, negociators, and agitators, weaving a web of intrigue that challenges your authority at every turn. Their ability to frame the conflict as a moral crusade lends power to the papal cause that mere armies cannot match. Historians still debate the extent to which papal legates shaped the outcome of your campaign. Some argue they were decisive in rallying opposition and legitimizing rival claimants. Others see their role as limited, constrained by local loyalties and political complexities. The truth likely lies in the subtle interplay of spiritual influence and earthly power. Your response is multifaceted. You engage in counter-diplomacy, sending your own envoys to courts swayed by papal legates offering concessions, forging alliances, and reminding nobles of their oaths. You also reinforce your image as the divinely sanctioned ruler, invoking tradition and precedent to challenge the legate's assertions. The presence of these emissaries complicates governance. Nobles and clergy within your realm become divided, with some embracing papal directives and others clinging to imperial loyalty. This schism weakens administrative cohesion and complicates efforts to enforce laws and collect taxes. Your administrators must navigate these treacherous waters, balancing firmness with diplomacy. The legate's influence extends to the common people, who look to the church for guidance amid the chaos. Their sermons and proclamations shape public opinion, framing the conflict in terms of sin and salvation. This spiritual dimension intensifies the stakes, transforming political rebellion into a perceived holy war. Amidst this turmoil, you witness moments of courage and conviction among your supporters, as well as moments of doubt and betrayal. The battle for hearts and minds is as fierce as any fought with sword and shield. You must remain vigilant, adaptable, and persuasive. The legate's presence also forces you to confront the evolving relationship between church and state. The traditional balance of power is shifting, challenging centuries-old assumptions about sovereignty and divine right. You engage in theological debates, legal disputes, and public discourse to assert your position. This period tests not only your political acumen, but also your spiritual resilience. You seek counsel from trusted clergy, reflect on your faith, and use religious symbolism to strengthen your claim. The intertwining of religion and politics becomes ever more complex and critical as the legates continue their work. The empire's landscape becomes a mosaic of shifting allegiances and contested authority. The papal influence carves new fault lines, but your leadership strives to hold the realm together. The struggle is exhausting, but necessary. So, as you navigate the challenges posed by the papal legates, I remember that power is wielded not only through force, but through persuasion, faith, and the enduring human quest for meaning. Your reign is a testament to the delicate balance between earthly rule and spiritual authority, a balance that will shape the destiny of the empire for generations. The Siege of Harzburg is a grim chapter in your campaign, a brutal testament to the harsh realities of medieval warfare and the fierce resistance of those determined to defy imperial authority. Harzburg, perched atop a rugged hill, with its towering stone walls and narrow gates, stands as a symbol of rebellion and defiance, a fortress whose fall could mark a turning point in your struggle to reclaim control over the fractious empire. You arrive with your forces weary but resolute, the air thick with anticipation and the bitter scent of smoke and damp earth. The fortress looms above, its battlements bristling with defenders who know the land intimately and fight with a desperation born of survival. Every stone in Harzburg's walls seems to hold a story of resistance, and breaching those walls means more than military victory. It means shattering a bastion of opposition. The siege begins with the methodical pounding of battering rams, the steady advance of siege towers, and the launch of flaming arrows and catapults. Your engineers work tirelessly, constructing tunnels and siege engines, while your soldiers press the assault with grim determination. Days blur into nights, each filled with the sounds of clashing steel, shouted commands, and the ever-present threat of counterattack. You probably did not expect the defenders to put up such tenacious resistance. Their knowledge of the terrain, coupled with fierce loyalty to their cause, makes every inch of progress costly and fraught with danger. Ambushes and sorties test your forces, and the narrow mountain paths limit the effectiveness of your larger formations. Historians still debate the siege's significance and conduct. Some view your tactics as ruthless, but necessary to crush rebellion swiftly. Others criticize the harsh measures and the toll on civilian lives. The siege epitomizes the brutal cycle of retaliation and repression that defines much of your reign. The human cost weighs heavily on you. Casualties mount, and the suffering of both soldiers and civilians casts a shadow over any sense of triumph. You grapple with the moral complexities of warfare, balancing the demands of authority with the need for mercy and justice. Your decisions in Harzburg will echo in the memories of survivors and the judgments of posterity. Amidst the siege's hardships, moments of courage and sacrifice shine through. Your knights lead charges to breach walls. Foot soldiers hold perilous positions. Medics and clergy tend the wounded with compassion and resilience. These acts remind you of the human spirit's endurance, even in the darkest times. The eventual fall of Harzburg, after weeks of relentless effort, sends shockwaves through the empire. The fortress's capture breaks a critical center of resistance, bolstering your force's morale and signaling a shift in momentum. Yet, it also intensifies animosities, fueling further rebellions and deepening divisions. In the aftermath, you face the challenge of consolidating control, rebuilding the devastated region, and reconciling with a populace wary of imperial rule. Governance demands not just strength, but wisdom and diplomacy. As you seek to heal wounds and restore stability, the siege teaches you profound lessons about the nature of power and the costs of maintaining it. Military might is vital, but so too are justice, compassion, and the ability to inspire loyalty beyond fear. So, as you reflect on the siege of Harzburg, remember that conquest is only the first step in rulership. True power lies in governance, in the delicate art of balancing strength with mercy to build an enduring realm. The bitter taste of exile stings more sharply than any wound sustained on the battlefield. Forced to leave the lands you fought so fiercely to govern, you experience the profound ache of separation, not just from your throne, but from the very people and places that shaped your reign. This temporary exile is a crucible of reflection and resolve, a period where the weight of loss mingles with the fire of determination to return stronger and more resolute than before. You depart your strongholds under cover of night, the familiar banners folded and stored away, replaced by the cold shadows of uncertainty. The roads you once traveled as emperor now seem foreign, lined with eyes filled with suspicion or indifference. Every step away from your lands feels like a severing of ties. Yet within you burns the unyielding belief that this is but a pause, a strategic retreat before the storm of reclamation. You probably never imagined exile would test you so profoundly. The isolation is both physical and psychological. Removed from the centers of power, your influence wanes, and rumors swirl like autumn leaves, carried on a restless wind. Allies waver, courtiers plot, and rivals seize the moment to consolidate their gains. Yet, exile also offers space a rare opportunity to strategize, gather new support, and rebuild the fractured foundation of your authority. Historians debate the nature of your exile. Some depict it as a humiliating fall from grace, others as a necessary step in a larger plan of resurgence. The truth likely encompasses both perspectives, revealing a ruler forced into hardship, but refusing to surrender. During this time, you seek refuge among loyal nobles, de distants relatives, and sympathetic courts. These temporary havens become centers of planning and diplomacy, where you rebuild alliances and muster forces for the campaign ahead. Your charisma and unbroken spirit attract followers willing to risk everything for a chance at restoration. The exile challenges your identity. Stripped of the crown's immediate power, you confront the essence of your rule. Is it in titles and lands, or in the loyalty and faith of your people? This period of introspection deepens your understanding of leadership, humility, and resilience. News from your former domains reaches you in fragments, reports of rebellion, quelled or flaring anew, of nobles switching allegiance, of the Pope's continuing influence. Each message is a reminder of the empire's fragility and the urgency of your return. You weigh these updates carefully, adjusting your plans to the ever-shifting political landscape. The exile also tests your relationships. Friends become foes. Rivals extend tentative hands. You navigate this complex social web with caution, balancing trust and suspicion. The personal sacrifices are immense distance from family, loss of prestige, and the constant shadow of uncertainty. Despite these challenges, moments of hope emerge. Victories by loyal forces, defections of key adversaries, and the forging of new alliances bolster your spirits. You sharpen your resolve, fueled by the conviction that exile is not the end, but a crucible forging a stronger return. Your correspondence becomes a lifeline, connecting you with governors, generals, and clergy still loyal to your cause. Letters carry strategies, reassurances, and calls to action across the fractured empire. In this age, before instant communication, these missives are precious threads, holding the empire's tapestry together. You also reflect on the role of faith during this dark time. Prayer and contemplation offer solace and guidance, strengthening your inner fortitude. The complex relationship with the Church continues to shape your path, even as you face its opposition. As exile stretches on, you prepare meticulously for the moment to reclaim your throne. You balance patience with urgency, recognizing that timing is crucial. The campaigns ahead will demand not only military might, but political acumen and unwavering determination. So, as you endure the hardship of exile, remember that the path of kings is seldom straight or easy. Your story is one of endurance, strategy, and the unbreakable will to reclaim what is rightfully yours. The empire waits, and your time to return draws near. The fragile alliances that once held your empire together begin to fracture from within, revealing fault lines carved by ambition, fear, and shifting loyalties. What once seemed like a unified front now splinters into competing factions, each with its own agenda and vision for the future. The internal discord threatens to undermine all your efforts, turning your campaign into a battle, not just against external foes, but against the growing instability inside your own ranks. You witness the subtle shifts in allegiances. Trusted nobles who once swore fealty now hedge their bets, wavering between loyalty and self-preservation. Some seek advantage by playing rival factions against one another, while others quietly negotiate with your enemies. The court, once a place of strategy and counsel, becomes a maze of intrigue and suspicion. You probably did not anticipate how swiftly these fractures would deepen. The pressures of war, the uncertainty of your reign, and the influence of papal legates all conspire to erode trust. Friendships are tested, and betrayals become currency in the ruthless game of power. The very fabric of your empire seems to unravel thread by thread. Historians still debate the causes and consequences of this internal fragmentation. Was it an inevitable result of your prolonged conflict and weakened authority? Or could different choices have preserved unity? The answer is complex, shaped by the turbulent context of medieval politics and human ambition. In response, you work tirelessly to mend rifts and reinforce bonds. You engage in diplomacy within your own court, mediating disputes, rewarding loyalty, and reminding nobles of the greater cause. You balance firmness with persuasion, understanding that force alone cannot sustain allegiance. Your commanders also face challenges, as internal divisions complicate military coordination. Rivalries among generals threaten cohesion, and conflicting orders create confusion on the battlefield. You intervene personally to maintain discipline and focus, emphasizing the importance of unity in the face of external threats. The common people feel the impact of this discord as well. Tax burdens increase, justice becomes uneven, and security falters in regions caught between competing factions. Maintaining order and legitimacy becomes increasingly difficult, requiring careful governance and outreach. Amid the turmoil, moments of loyalty and sacrifice shine through. Some nobles and soldiers stand unwaveringly by your side, their dedication a beacon of hope. These steadfast allies become pillars of strength, helping to stabilize your rule during turbulent times. You also recognize the need for reform and renewal. The fractures reveal weaknesses in governance and administration that must be addressed to build a lasting peace. You begin considering changes that balance central authority with noble privileges, aiming to create a more resilient empire. The struggle to hold your realm together tests your leadership profoundly. You confront the reality that ruling an empire is as much about managing relationships and expectations as it is about commanding armies. Patience, empathy, and strategic vision become as essential as martial prowess. As factions vie for influence, you navigate a delicate path, avoiding alienation while asserting authority. The political landscape is a shifting puzzle, requiring constant vigilance and adaptability. So, as you face the challenge of internal division, remember that the strength of an empire lies not only in conquest, but in cohesion. Your ability to heal fractures and inspire loyalty will determine the legacy of your reign and the future of the realm. The vast and distant lands of Italy, rich in history and culture, become a battleground not only of armies, but of wills, as your imperial campaign reaches into their contested cities and territories. The Italian states, with their complex alliances and rivalries, present a unique challenge, a region where local ambition, papal influence, and imperial claims intertwine, turning the peninsula into a chessboard of shifting loyalties and strategic calculations. As you journey through these lands, the air is thick with the scent of cypress and olive, the streets alive with merchants and artisans, and the atmosphere charged with political intrigue. Italian city-states like Milan, Venice, and Florence wield considerable autonomy, their leaders proud and often resistant to imperial authority. Here, power is as much about controlling trade and alliances as it is about raising armies. You probably didn't expect the complexities of Italian politics to demand as much diplomacy as warfare. The local lords and communes balance their own interests carefully, wary of outside interference from both emperor and pope. Your representatives negotiate treaties, forge marriages, and sometimes resort to bribery to gain footholds in key cities. Military campaigns are often limited to strategic sieges and skirmishes, as outright conquest risks igniting widespread resistance. Historians still debate the effectiveness of your Italian policies and campaigns. Was your approach one of heavy-handed imperialism, Or did you genuinely seek to integrate these regions into a cohesive empire? The answer reflects a delicate balancing act between asserting authority and respecting local traditions and powers. The papacy's strong presence in Italy adds another layer of complexity. The Pope's spiritual and temporal influence rallies many Italian states against you, framing the conflict as a defense of church autonomy. Papal legates travel extensively, stirring unrest and encouraging resistance, making every step of your campaign a negotiation between force and faith. You face not only external opposition but also internal challenges. Your commanders must navigate unfamiliar terrain, unfamiliar customs, and shifting allegiances. Supply lines stretch across mountains and rivers, vulnerable to ambush and sabotage. Communication delays mean decisions are often made with incomplete information, requiring adaptability and trust in your deputies. Despite these obstacles, moments of cooperation emerge. Some Italian lords see benefit in alliance with the emperor, trading loyalty for protection, trade privileges, or political advantage. You cultivate these relationships carefully, building a patchwork of support that strengthens your position. Cultural exchanges enrich your campaign. You encounter art, philosophy, and architecture that inspire both admiration and reflection. These interactions remind you that empire is not only about dominion, but also about the blending of traditions and ideas. The people of Italy, merchants, peasants, clergy experience the turmoil firsthand. Their lives are disrupted by sieges, taxation, and shifting rulers. You recognize that winning their loyalty is crucial to lasting peace, prompting efforts to restore order and justice wherever your forces gain control. Your experiences in Italy shape your understanding of governance and empire building. You learn that power must be exercised with nuance, that respect for local identities strengthens rather than weakens rule. The lessons here influence your broader strategy as you seek to unify a diverse and fractious realm. So, as your campaign winds through Italy's contested cities and storied landscapes, remember that the path to imperial unity is as much about diplomacy and cultural understanding as it is about conquest. Your ability to navigate this complex terrain will leave a lasting imprint on the empire's future. The Diet of Mainz convenes amidst a charged atmosphere, a gathering of the empire's nobles, clergy, and dignitaries, each bearing the weight of ambition, fear, and hope. This assembly is more than a political formality. It is a crucible where the empire's future is debated, alliances forged or broken, and the delicate balance of power tested under the watchful eyes of both emperor and pope. You enter the grand hall with a mix of solemnity and determination. The stone walls echo with whispered conversations, the rustle of rich fabrics, and the measured footsteps of those who hold the empire's fate in their hands. The Diet is a microcosm of the empire itself, a diverse and fractious collection of voices, each with its own agenda and vision. You probably did not anticipate the complexity and tension that would define this gathering. Loyalties are divided. Some nobles remain steadfast in their support, others cautious or openly hostile. The presence of papal legates adds a spiritual dimension, their influence palpable in debates about authority, governance, and the Church's role. Historians still debate the Diet's significance. Some see it as a pivotal moment where imperial authority was reaffirmed. Others view it as a stage for political maneuvering that exposed the empire's fractures. The truth lies in the interplay of power, persuasion, and circumstance that characterizes such assemblies. The Diet sessions are marked by heated discussions and careful diplomacy. Debates rage over taxation, military support, legal reforms, and the succession. You must navigate these treacherous waters, balancing firmness with flexibility to maintain cohesion. Your speeches emphasize unity, the divine right of the emperor, and the necessity of collective action for the realm's survival. Behind the scenes, negotiations unfold, secret meetings, whispered promises, and strategic marriages. You engage with key nobles, securing commitments and addressing grievances. The art of diplomacy proves as crucial here as any battlefield maneuver. The Diet also reveals the empire's deep social and political divisions. Regional rivalries surface. Clerical interests, conflict with secular ambitions, and personal vendettas influence decisions. Managing these complexities requires patience, insight, and sometimes concessions. Amid the political machinations, moments of shared purpose emerge. Delegates recognize the common threats facing the empire: external enemies, internal rebellions, and the papal challenge. These shared concerns provide a foundation for fragile agreements and cooperative plans. The decisions made at Mainz set the course for the empire's immediate future. Agreements on raising troops, financing campaigns, and governing contested regions aim to strengthen imperial control. Yet, the enforcement of these decisions remains uncertain, dependent on the goodwill and power of local lords. Your leadership during the Diet demonstrates your ability to command not only armies, but also the loyalties and ambitions of your peers. You balance authority with negotiation, projecting strength while accommodating diversity. The gathering also underscores the evolving nature of medieval governance. The empire is not a monolithic state, but a complex federation of powers, where the emperor's reach is both extensive and limited. Understanding this dynamic shapes your strategies and expectations. So, as the Diet of Mainz concludes, remember that empire is forged not only in battle, but in council chambers, where words shape destinies and alliances. Your skill in these halls will determine the resilience and unity of the realm you strive to hold together. Civil war tears through the empire with relentless ferocity, leaving scars etched deep into the land and its people. Towns burn under Siege. Families are divided by loyalty and blood, and the very soil drinks the spilled blood of sons and fathers. The struggle for power is no longer contained to isolated battles. It has engulfed the realm, a widespread conflict that fractures communities and challenges the bonds that once held the empire together. You ride through devastated villages, where smoke rises from smoldering ruins, the air thick with grief and despair. Survivors move like shadows, haunted by loss and uncertainty, clinging to hope amid the ruins. Markets lie empty, fields go untended, and the rhythms of daily life falter under the weight of violence and upheaval. The common folk, caught between rival armies and shifting loyalties, bear the heaviest burdens of your prolonged campaign. You probably did not anticipate the depth of suffering that civil war would unleash upon your empire. The conflict transcends political rivalry. It becomes a test of endurance, morality, and humanity. The lines between friend and foe blur as communities fracture. Neighbors turn against neighbors, and survival often demands difficult choices. Historians still debate the causes and consequences of this devastating war. Was it an inevitable breakdown of medieval power structures, or could different decisions have preserved peace? The answer reflects the complexities of medieval society, where loyalty, faith, and ambition intertwine in unpredictable ways. Your leadership during these dark times is marked by a struggle to balance military necessity with compassion. You issue orders to minimize harm to civilians when possible. Yet the brutal realities of war often override such intentions. Sieges lead to famine and disease. Scorched earth tactics sow despair, reprisals, fuel cycles of vengeance. Amid the devastation, moments of resilience and solidarity emerge. Communities band together to rebuild, heal, and protect one another. Clergy and aid workers tend to the wounded and comfort the bereaved. Stories of bravery and sacrifice inspire hope, even in the bleakest circumstances. The Civil War also exposes weaknesses in governance and administration. Maintaining law and order becomes a Herculean task, as officials are stretched thin, loyalties fractured, and resources scarce. You delegate authority carefully, relying on trusted deputies to enforce decrees and manage reconstruction efforts. The conflict's toll extends beyond the battlefield. Economies falter, trade routes become perilous, and cultural life suffers. Artisans and scholars face displacement. Monasteries and churches endure damage. The social fabric strains, threatening long-term stability. Your personal resolve is tested as you witness the human cost of your ambitions. Moments of reflection and remorse deepen your understanding of leadership's burdens. You seek counsel from advisors, clergy, and perhaps your own conscience, wrestling with the consequences of power. Despite the hardships, the war for the empire's future continues. You adapt strategies, balancing offensive campaigns with efforts to negotiate peace and reconciliation. The path to restoration is fraught with challenges, but your vision of a unified realm remains unshaken. So, as the fires of civil war rage across your lands, remember that the strength of an empire lies not only in conquest, but in the capacity to heal, rebuild, and unite. Your legacy will be shaped as much by your ability to mend these wounds as by the battles you have won. The Battle of Flachheim erupts with the thunder of hooves and the clash of steel, a brutal encounter that epitomizes the chaos and uncertainty defining your long campaign. The open fields near the town become a stage for fierce combat, where strategy, courage, and sheer will collide in a desperate struggle for dominance. This battle is not merely about territory, it is a test of your leadership and the resilience of your fractured empire. As dawn breaks, you survey the battlefield, the morning mist lifting to reveal rows of armored knights, disciplined infantry, and banners fluttering defiantly against the pale sky. The air is charged with anticipation and dread. Soldiers tighten grips on weapons, prepare their formations, and offer prayers to saints and ancestors. The tension is palpable, every man aware that the outcome may sway the fortunes of the realm. You probably did not expect Flachheim to be such a crucible, a fierce contest marked by unpredictable twists and a bloody stalemate. The enemy is well prepared, their commanders skilled in exploiting terrain and tactical opportunities. The battle unfolds in waves, charges crash against shields, flanking, maneuver, disrupt formations, and individual duels punctuate the mass of combat. Historians still debate the precise outcome and significance of Flachheim. Some view it as a strategic victory that checked enemy advances. Others see it as inconclusive, a costly engagement with no decisive winner. Regardless, the battle exemplifies the brutal reality of medieval warfare, where glory is often shadowed by loss and uncertainty. Amid the chaos, moments of valor shine. Knights rally their men with cries of courage. Foot soldiers hold lines against overwhelming odds. Commanders adapt swiftly to changing circumstances. Your leadership is tested as you coordinate maneuvers, inspire determination, and make critical decisions under fire. The battle's aftermath is sobering. Fields are strewn with the wounded and fallen. The cries of the injured mingle with the cries of victory and despair. Medical attendants tend the sick and dying, while survivors regroup to prepare for what comes next. The cost of battle weighs heavily on all. Beyond the battlefield, the conflict's ripple effects shape the political landscape. Allies gain confidence. Enemies reconsider strategies, and neutral parties watch closely. The empire remains divided, but battles like Flachheim reinforce the resolve of those loyal to your cause. You reflect on the lessons of the fight, the importance of adaptability, the value of unity, and the human cost of power struggles. The experience sharpens your strategic insight and deepens your understanding of leadership amid uncertainty. So, as the dust settles on Flachheim's fields, remember that war is a crucible where strength, strategy, and spirit are forged. Your journey continues, marked by battles fought and lessons learned in the relentless pursuit of empire. The campaign drags on. Yet, amidst the chaos, historians and chroniclers still argue whether your strategy was a masterstroke of patience and adaptability, or simply stubbornness. That prolonged conflict and suffering, this debate underscores the complexity of your reign, an era marked by fierce battles, shifting alliances, and the fragile dance between power and principle. You find yourself reflecting on decisions that once seemed clear, but now reveal layers of consequence and ambiguity. Your choice to stand firm against the papal challenge, to press forward, despite internal dissent and external pressure, was both lauded and criticized. Was it a display of unwavering sovereignty, or a reckless gamble that deepened divisions? The truth is as multifaceted as the empire itself. You probably did not foresee how future generations would dissect your actions with such scrutiny. Chroniclers from rival factions painted contrasting portraits, some depicting you as a resolute defender of imperial authority, others as a stubborn tyrant blind to political realities. These narratives shape the legacy you leave behind, illustrating how history often becomes a battleground of interpretation. The ongoing conflict tested your ability to balance military might with political diplomacy. Each campaign, each negotiation, demanded flexibility and foresight. You adapted tactics to changing circumstances, sought alliances where possible, and confronted betrayals with calculated responses. Yet, the question remains, could a different approach have shortened the war or saved lives? The scholarly debate extends to your management of resources and governance, your efforts to maintain control over diverse territories, manage fractious nobles, and administer justice under wartime conditions highlight both your strengths and limitations. Historians analyze whether your policies fostered loyalty or alienated key constituencies. Amidst this scrutiny, you continue to lead with determination. The burdens of command weigh heavily, yet your resolve to preserve the empire's unity and sovereignty remains unshaken. You draw lessons from both successes and setbacks, striving to navigate the turbulent political landscape with wisdom and courage. Your personal reflections reveal the toll of prolonged conflict, the constant demands of leadership, the losses endured, and the complexities of power shape a nuanced understanding of rulership. You grapple with the balance between conviction and pragmatism, ambition and humility. The debate over your strategy also illuminates broader themes: the evolving nature of medieval kingship, the interplay between church and state, and the challenges of ruling a fragmented realm. Your reign becomes a case study in the complexities of medieval power dynamics. As the campaign progresses, you seek counsel from trusted advisors, clergy, and allies, recognizing that no ruler succeeds alone. Collaborative decision-making becomes essential in managing the empire's diverse challenges. So, as history continues to debate your legacy, remember that leadership is rarely clear-cut. It is a tapestry woven from choices, circumstances, and interpretations. Your story reflects the enduring human struggle to wield power responsibly amid uncertainty. The death of Pope Gregory VII sends ripples of uncertainty through your embattled empire, marking a pivotal moment in the protracted struggle between imperial and papal authority. His passing closes a chapter marked by relentless conflict, bold declarations, and a fierce assertion of church power that challenged your very right to rule. Yet, the void left behind is not a respite, but a complex crossroads, fraught with new dangers and shifting alliances. You stand amid this transition with cautious eyes. The Pope's death is a profound event, stirring emotions both among his followers and adversaries. For many, Gregory VII was a symbol of reform and divine authority. For others, a stubborn obstacle to imperial sovereignty. His absence opens opportunities for recalibration by you, your rivals, and the Church alike. You probably did not anticipate how the papal succession would alter the campaign's dynamics. The election of a new pope becomes a matter of intense intrigue and influence, with various factions vying to shape the outcome. The new pontiff's stance toward your reign remains uncertain, introducing both hope and risk into the political calculus. Historians debate the impact of Gregory's death on the course of the investiture controversy and your campaign. Some argue it weakened the papal position, offering you a chance to regain ground. Others contend it prolonged instability as new leaders asserted their authority. The truth reflects the intricate interplay of personalities, politics, and power. The transition prompts a re-examination of alliances and strategies. You engage in diplomatic efforts to court favor with the new pope and his supporters, seeking to ease tensions and secure legitimacy. Simultaneously, your rivals adapt their tactics, sensing opportunities to advance their claims amid the shifting landscape. Within the empire, Gregory's death influences the morale and loyalty of nobles and clergy. Some remain steadfast in papal allegiance. Others reconsider their positions in light of the changing ecclesiastical leadership. These shifts add layers of complexity to your governance and military campaigns. The Church's internal dynamics come into sharper focus. Factions within the clergy debate the direction of reforms, the extent of papal authority, and relations with secular rulers. These debates echo across Europe, shaping perceptions and policies that affect your reign. You confront the challenge of navigating this period of uncertainty with both caution and determination. Your leadership requires flexibility to respond to evolving circumstances without appearing weak or indecisive. You balance efforts to assert imperial authority with gestures of conciliation toward the Church. The Pope's death also underscores the personal nature of power during this era. Gregory's charisma and convictions deeply influenced events. His successor's personality and policies will similarly shape the empire's future. Understanding these human factors becomes essential to your strategy. Amid these political and spiritual shifts, you remain focused on the practical realities of war and governance. Zegas, battles, and administration continue, demanding attention and resilience. The empire's stability hinges on your ability to manage both external threats and internal divisions. So, as you navigate the aftermath of Pope Gregory VII's death, Remember that leadership in turbulent times demands adaptability, foresight, and an understanding of the complex forces at play. Your reign stands at a crossroads, shaped by legacy, ambition, and the ever-changing tides of power. In the swirling maelstrom of conflict, you begin the painstaking process of consolidating power, piecing together the fractured remnants of your empire with cautious determination. The battlefield victories, strategic alliances, and political maneuvers of recent years have begun to yield tangible results. But the road to lasting authority remains perilous and fraught with challenges. Rebuilding the empire's unity and restoring trust are tasks as demanding as any siege or battle you have faced. You move deliberately through territories recently reclaimed, aware that military conquest is but the first step. Governance requires a delicate balanced strength to enforce laws and order, and wisdom to mend divisions and foster loyalty. Your presence is both a symbol of imperial authority and a reminder of the burdens borne by your subjects in these turbulent times. You probably did not expect how complex and varied the process of consolidation would be. Each region carries its own history, customs, and grievances, requiring tailored approaches to administration and reconciliation. Some areas welcome your rule, eager for stability and protection. Others remain wary, scarred by years of war and uncertain of their future. Historians still debate the effectiveness of your consolidation efforts. Some praise your diplomatic skill and vision, crediting you with stabilizing a realm on the brink of collapse. Others point to lingering unrest and resistance as evidence of incomplete control. The reality reflects the immense challenges of medieval governance and the limitations inherent in any ruler's reach. Your strategy includes rebuilding local institutions, restoring courts, appointing trusted officials, and ensuring the collection of taxes to fund administration and defense. You emphasize justice, seeking to address past abuses while reinforcing imperial law. These efforts aim to demonstrate the benefits of unity and the consequences of rebellion. Political marriages and alliances continue to play a vital role in consolidating support. You negotiate unions that bind powerful families to your cause, weaving a network of loyalty that strengthens the empire's foundations. At the same time, you remain vigilant against potential betrayals and shifting allegiances. Your military presence remains a crucial element of control. Garrisons are established in key locations to deter rebellion and enforce order. Yet, you recognize the importance of not relying solely on force. Legitimacy and consent are essential for sustainable governance. The Church's relationship with your regime evolves as well. Efforts are made to reconcile with ecclesiastical authorities, balancing respect for spiritual power with assertions of imperial prerogative. These negotiations are delicate, reflecting the intertwined nature of religious and secular authority. You face the ongoing challenge of addressing the needs and grievances of the common people, reconstruction of war-torn areas, relief from taxation, where possible, and the restoration of trade and agriculture become priorities. The prosperity of your subjects is integral to the empire's strength and stability. Your leadership during consolidation reflects growth and adaptation. You blend firmness with diplomacy, the tradition with innovation, and ambition with pragmatism. The lessons of war inform your approach to peace, guiding efforts to build a resilient and cohesive realm. As you survey the emerging order, you understand that consolidation is an ongoing process, requiring vigilance, flexibility, and commitment. The unity you seek is fragile, but with sustained effort, it can endure. So, As you continue to weave the threads of empire together, remember that true power lies not only in conquest, but in governance, crafting a realm where diverse peoples find security, justice, and hope under your rule. The long shadow cast by your decade of struggle stretches far beyond immediate battles and political maneuvers, influencing the very fabric of medieval Europe and reshaping the delicate balance between church and state for generations to come. The outcomes of your campaign echo not only through the halls of your empire, but across the continent, altering alliances, doctrines, and the understanding of sovereignty in profound and lasting ways. As you reflect on the campaigns fought and the empire slowly brought back from the brink, you realize that your reign marks a watershed moment, a transition between eras. The investiture controversy, the shifting allegiances of nobles, and the assertion of papal authority all signal a transformation in how power is perceived and exercised. The conflicts you endured are more than personal or political struggles. They are the crucibles forging a new medieval order. You probably did not foresee the full extent of these ripple effects. Your battles and negotiations became reference points for kings and popes across Europe, influencing doctrines about the divine right to rule and the limits of secular authority. The precedents set during your reign would be debated, challenged, and adapted in courts far beyond your own realm. Historians continue to study this era as a turning point. Some interpret your reign as a testament to the resilience of imperial authority against ecclesiastical encroachment. Others see it as a catalyst accelerating the church's ascendancy and the gradual decentralization of political power. The complexity of these interpretations underscores the multifaceted legacy you leave behind. Your experiences highlight the evolving relationship between spiritual and temporal power. The assertion by the Pope of the right to depose emperors challenged centuries-old conceptions of kingship and divine sanction. This tension between crown and cross would shape political thought and conflict for centuries, influencing the structure of emerging nation-states and the role of religion in governance. The campaign also had profound social and cultural impacts. The mobilization of armies, the devastation of lands, and the shifting loyalties affected countless lives, transforming communities and economies. The war's hardships accelerated changes in military organization, legal systems, and administrative practices, leaving a lasting imprint on medieval society. Your personal legacy intertwines with these broader transformations. You are remembered as a ruler who fought tenaciously to uphold imperial authority, navigating the treacherous waters of rebellion, papal opposition, and internal dissent. Your reign exemplifies the challenges of leadership amid epochal change. Amidst these sweeping historical currents, moments of individual courage, tragedy, and resilience stand out. The stories of soldiers, nobles, clergy, and commoners caught in the tides of conflict humanize this grand narrative, reminding us that history is lived through countless personal journeys. The lessons drawn from your reign continue to resonate. They speak to the complexities of power, the necessity of adaptation, and the enduring struggle to balance authority with justice. Your story offers insights into the nature of rulership and the forces that shape the destiny of realms. So, as you contemplate the long shadow of your campaign across medieval Europe, remember that history is a tapestry woven from victories and defeats, ideals and realities. Your reign is a thread in that fabric, vibrant, contested, and enduring, shaping the course of a continent and the meaning of empire. As the dust finally settles on the years of conflict, you find yourself standing at the precipice of a fragile peace, the weight of empire heavy upon your shoulders. but the chaos of war gradually receding. The echoes of battles fought and alliances forged still resonate across the land. But now the challenge shifts toward healing, a slow, delicate process of reconciliation, restoration, and reflection. You look over territories scarred by war, where fields once lush lie fallow, and towns bear the marks of siege and strife. The people, weary from years of upheaval, yearn for stability, justice, and the return of daily rhythms. Your role transforms from that of a warrior king to a guardian of peace, tasked with rebuilding not just infrastructure, but trust among nobles, clergy, and commoners alike. You probably did not anticipate how complex this transition would be. The scars of civil war are not easily erased. Grievances linger, old rivalries smolder, and the temptation for renewed conflict remains. Gouvernance demande patience, wisdom, and an unwavering commitment to fairness. Historians often highlight this period as the true test of your leadership. Military victories can conquer lands, but it is through administration, diplomacy, and justice that empires endure. Your policies aimed at reconciliation, pardons for rebels, restoration of confiscated lands under certain conditions, and legal reforms reflect an understanding of power tempered by mercy. Your efforts extend to rebuilding economic foundations, encouraging trade, repairing roads and bridges, and supporting agricultural recovery become priorities. These practical measures foster prosperity and help stabilize a society shaken by years of conflict. The Church's role in this peace is pivotal. Efforts to mend relations with the papacy and local clergy help restore spiritual unity and moral authority. You engage in dialogues that seek balance between imperial rights and ecclesiastical privileges, recognizing that cooperation is essential for lasting order. Your court becomes a place of renewed purpose, where debates shift from war councils to discussions of law, culture, and governance. Advisors, sholars, and diplomats contribute to shaping policies that reflect lessons learned through hardship. The personal toll of this era weighs on you as well, reflecting on years of struggle, loss, and sacrifice deepens your understanding of the human condition and the responsibilities of rulership. You seek solace in faith, family, and the hope that future generations will inherit a more peaceful realm. The peace is neither complete nor unchallenged. Rebellions flare sporadically, rival factions test boundaries, and the balance of power remains delicate. Yet, the foundations laid during this period offer a path forward, a framework for unity and resilience. You embrace the role of peacemaker, mediator, and visionary, guiding the empire through its most vulnerable phase. Your legacy will be measured not only by battles won, but by the stability and prosperity you nurture in their wake. So, as night falls and the empire breathes a tentative sigh of relief, remember that peace is a journey, not a destination. Your reign concludes not with the clash of arms, but with the quiet work of healing, a testament to the enduring strength of leadership, grounded in wisdom and compassion.